Scotland is a land rich in natural capital. Forests, rivers and lochs, mountains, fertile soil, wetlands, coasts and seas, and an amazing diversity of wildlife.
Natural capital is essentially the assets contained within the world's ecosystems. And we need to understand the value of those assets so we can manage those assets better in the future.
Natural capital is an important asset for Scotland. Our landscapes, our agriculture, there's also wind, wave, tidal power.
It's this natural capital that sustains our economy and our communities.
I think we have to understand that our fundamental assets, if you like, the things on which prosperity depends, are natural assets. The habitat, soils, oceans, rivers, the atmosphere. If you leave these things out of decision making, then you're not making very good decisions. Where do we value them? Where do they sit in the national accounts? What kind of framework do we use to include them in decision making? And the answer is very often none.
So in 2013, the Scottish Wildlife Trust convened the first World Forum on Natural Capital in Edinburgh. And that really brought together a whole range of different people from around the world, not just environmentalists, but business people, governments, researchers, to discuss this topic of natural capital and understand how we can manage the world's assets of natural capital better in the future.
We are at an important moment when countries now understand that protecting the environment is not something that is done at the expense of jobs and the economy, but is essential to securing jobs and economy for the future.
So here we are in Flanders Moss, an example of a bog which has been exploited and abused for centuries, cut for peat in the past. We now understand that if we can get this site wet again, it can provide a whole range of different benefits.
It's really special because it's one of the biggest and best bogs in the UK, but also it's a home to rare plants and species. We're locking up carbon, so we're mitigating climate change here, and it also offers natural flood risk management as well. And most important of all, it's a fantastic place that people enjoy to visit.
So what we need to do is to turn what essentially is a degraded asset into an asset in good condition so it can actually provide for us in the future.
In the far north of Scotland is the Flow Country, Europe's largest blanket bog. RSPB Scotland is leading an ambitious project called Flows to the Future on behalf of the Peatlands Partnership. This will help restore the bog's ability to lock up huge amounts of carbon. It will provide a home to rare species of plants and birds and bring economic benefits through jobs and tourism. There are many ways that organisations in Scotland are looking at natural capital. Crown Estate Scotland is pioneering a new approach to working with land-based businesses. They're helping tenants on their 37,000 hectare estate to understand and use the concept of natural capital.
Management of natural capital as a land business is absolutely crucial to our long-term sustainability. As land managers, as custodians of large amounts of natural capital, we need to understand the dependencies and the impacts that these land businesses have on the long-term future of ecosystem services and natural capital. We're working with a range of partners to trial the natural capital protocol in order that we can help to bridge that gap between the theory and the actual practical application for a business.
I think the old adage is we are custodians of the ground that we farm, and we have to leave it in a better health than we found it. We have 300 acres that has been open cast land where we have been importing compost, using rotations, put all the cattle dung that we can back in to improve the soil health, to help improve all the land we farm, to leave it in a better state than we found it.
What's exciting and different about this idea of natural capital is that it reframes nature, not as an expensive problem to be fixed, but actually a solution to so many of the issues that we face in society at the moment.
Natural capital is really important. There is a debate about whether we should monetise the value of it. How can you put a price on nature? But actually without a price or without some way of valuing it, you don't have a metric to capture the depletion. We need to value it so we understand the value of the stock and the flow of benefits that come from it.
A good example of natural capital is water. a natural resource which we all need. Many companies are so dependent on water. For example, the whisky industry. If they didn't have access to pure, clean water, they'd be stuck. Businesses can't just focus on making profits and disregard everything else. They have to make sure their business models are sustainable long term.
Business understand capital. They understand the need to invest within their own business capital, and they get the concept of natural capital. Going forward, natural capital is going to have a much stronger role in influencing economic thinking and policy, because resources are critical to the economy.
Businesses, along with everybody else, has to behave more responsibly.
Scotland is in many respects leading the way in demonstrating that there needn't be a tension between protecting our environment and our natural capital and growing our economy. They are two sides of the same coin. That's why Scotland was one of the first countries to sign up to the Sustainable Development Goals. It's why we were one of the first countries in the world to develop a natural capital asset index to allow us to focus on growing our stock of natural capital. And it's why we put so much emphasis on making sure that we tackle climate change, protecting the environment that our natural capital needs to thrive.
The Scottish Environment Protection Agency is also taking an innovative approach to regulation. Their One Planet Prosperity strategy encourages businesses to go beyond compliance with the law.
One Planet Prosperity is based on the idea that if everyone lived the way we do in this country, we'd need 3 planets, but we only have the one. So the communities and businesses that will prosper in the 21st century are those that will find ways to prosper within the planet's capacity to support them. Regulatory agencies like SEPA have traditionally protected the environment through permitting, for example, the disposal of waste to landfill sites. One Planet Prosperity, our new regulatory strategy, is moving us in a different direction. It's saying that in the future we should be looking to use resources rather than create waste. Make a circular economy, create environmental, economic and social success out of best practice and good behaviour for the environment. Because it's good for businesses, it's good for cities, it's good for communities, it's good for the environment.
One early pioneer in the field of natural capital was T.B. Macaulay, who made his fortune in Canada and ploughed it back into the land of his ancestors, founding an Institute of Soil Research. This work now continues at the James Hutton Institute, and his legacy lives on through the Macaulay Development Trust.
There's been a great deal of scientific discovery about natural capital. If we look at soils, for example, we're starting to appreciate that there's a biodiversity within our soils which has huge potential for biotechnology, for new management schemes for agriculture and forestry, and has even links to human health. It's not just about technological innovation in relation to natural capital, it's also about social innovation. Because everyone shares in that natural capital and everyone should be sharing in the decision-making process, we need to use new methodologies to engage people. I think the world is facing many challenges, particularly around the supply of food, water and energy for the growing population. And all of that is happening at a time when our natural capital is actually being degraded. And we are losing land, we are losing biodiversity, soil is eroding. All these are major challenges ahead for us. We could be despondent about that, but I think what we're seeing now is a realisation that these things are important and that we can actually turn this around and actually move forward with a different approach. But we do need a new approach.
In Scotland, there's a new generation of entrepreneurs creating value from our natural capital.
Coentech is a blue biotech company that take the waste from the shellfish processing of langoustine and turn it into antimicrobial, compostable food packaging, which makes your food last longer. It doesn't add to the plastic mountain of waste that is destroying our environment.
For natural capital to actually be viable, we need to actually maintain and sustain the stocks that are available to us. Whether it's langoustine or crab or any other shellfish or even insects for that matter, the impact that they can have in our life is actually staggering, whether it's a new plastic or even new drugs potentially. If we abuse it, we're never going to know its true potential.
Forests are also a vital part of Scotland's natural capital, and restoring them brings a range of benefits. Cloud Forest is a startup that's looking to crowdfund productive forestry for the future.
Cloud Forest is going to provide a return for the investors by producing timber, and we're also going to add to the natural capital of Scotland. We're going to be sequestering carbon into the land and the soil, and we're also going to enhance biodiversity. The support in Scotland for startup companies is great. There's a lot of organisations there to help you. I think the time's really right for crowdfunded forestry. There's an increasing awareness of the importance of forests, and the technology is there to support doing this efficiently. We really want to take a long-term view about our forests, and the trees you're planting now are going to be harvested in 40 years' time. What's the technology that we're going to have then? We don't really know, so it's exciting.
Some of Scotland's largest companies are also starting to consider natural capital in their decision-making. SP Energy Networks is one of them.
SP Energy Networks have over 4,000 kilometres of transmission infrastructure above ground and over 40,000 kilometres of distribution infrastructure above ground. So that's enough to go around the earth one time. If we look at a local level, and somewhere like the Living Landscape in Cumbernauld where we are today, we look at the impacts that our infrastructure is having in that small area. We're also looking at some of the mitigation that we can employ to deal with those impacts and how we can scale that up across our infrastructure across the country. For us, it's not always the cost of these mitigation measures, but more the value that we can employ from those mitigation measures. We're at the very early stages of our thinking in natural capital, but we can already see how it can change decisions on investment, change decisions on development, and how it will change decisions made in terms of the operation of our infrastructure.
People think of natural capital as being something you find in rural areas, but actually investment in natural capital in urban areas is possibly even more important than it is in rural areas, because it's where people live. Scottish Wildlife Trust, through its Living Landscape programme here in Cumbernauld, and through investing in the town, investing in the town's green infrastructure, is bringing many benefits to the health and well-being of the people that live here, through things like improved air quality, water quality, flood amelioration, recreational and educational benefits.
Our natural capital is vital to the health, well-being and prosperity of our country, and Scotland will be a better country if we recognise that and reflect that in all of our policy making.
This is about the long term. We've got absolutely amazing natural capital in Scotland, and we really need to invest and preserve these for the future.
I think there's a convergence now in terms of economics, ecology, environment and thinking, which really puts Scotland at the forefront of this. It's reflected in our energy, our renewables, our low carbon commitments, our commitments to the circular economy, and I believe this is a real opportunity for Scotland to embrace natural capital.